You're welcome back. This is Business Morning. We have been talking about the consumer protection law that has been signed by Lagos State and also other laws generally as being spearheaded by the Consumer Protection Council in the country. And we have been talking to Tam Tamanokombia, the head Lagos office, Consumer Protection Council, and also a legal practitioner, Chinweke Ezebube, on this issue. Thank you, gentlemen, for still being a part of the program. I'm going to start with Tam right now. We've seen duplication of efforts in some agencies, and some people are of the view that these laws may, provide some kind of conflict with what CPC stands for. I do not know, when you heard about this law being signed, this bill being signed into law by the Lagos State Governor, does it sound like a duplication of function at all?
Well, consumer protection and commerce generally in Nigeria, it's under the concurrent list. And so, since it's under the concurrent list, some state governments think that they also have the powers to enact their own laws relating to consumer protection. But over the years, Consumer Protection Council had existed at the federal level and at the state levels as well. The existing Consumer Protection Committee in Lagos is an offshoot of the Consumer Protection Council. I remember and recall that sometime 2007, I was one of those who came and discussed with them on how the setup would be like. Much of what they have done had been through the Consumer Protection Council. So I really do not understand the whole idea of having an entire parastatal of a consumer protection agency in Nigeria. But having said so, I have also stated that since it is under the concurrent list of legislation, as a Consumer Protection Council, we cannot fight that. It is left for them. The field, to me, is very wide. The Consumer Protection Council today protects the consumer, is the apex government agency that protects the consumer. And Section 12 of our Act says that any law that is enacted for the protection of the consumer is enforceable by the Consumer Protection Council. And so we are not worried about whatever law anybody brings, as long as it is not done out of politics, as long as it is not done out of any ill feeling. If the consumer is protected by any law made by the state governments and the local governments, if they like, and the consumer is protected, we will be satisfied. But I'm sure that the way we have operated over the years, the Lagos State Consumer Protection Committee would necessarily liaise with us, and we are always open to working with them, even in the enforcement of this law. Finally, on that, I would say that it is a trite law, it is elementary, that where a state law conflicts with the federal law prevails. And that is the position, and I'm sure that my colleague and my other colleagues in consumer protection are quite aware of that. So if people are saying today that the law of Consumer Protection Agency in Lagos State is unnecessary, I won't be able to fault them if they say so. But on the other hand, those who are saying that it is very, very important that they have it, we do not also have an axe to grind with them. As far as the consumer who we stand to represent in Nigeria is indeed protected. Now, when we work, over the years, when we work with state committees, one of the things as a council we have insisted upon is the issue of compromise. Consumer Protection Agency, it's something that is very, very sensitive, because as you are protecting the consumer, the provider of service is thinking that you are oppressing him. We also know that without the goods being available, the consumer will not be able to buy them, and so he's not protected. So it's a very, very sensitive job to do. And while you are protecting the consumer, somebody is saying that you are bribed, somebody is saying you are compromised. And this is one thing we have hammered on all consumer protection agencies, those who exist in form of state committees that we have established in most of the states. And I believe that we should be able to do that again, even under this law.
All right, Chiwike, if a consumer has a problem, excuse me, if a consumer has a complaint and he or she resides in Lagos, where does he table this complaint now that we have another agency, so to speak, here, aside from the CPC?
Okay. I will start by saying that the first issue to be considered before we start to either fault or applaud the Consumer Protection Agency law of Lagos State is to ask ourselves whether there's any direct conflict between the law of Lagos State and the one that is already in existence by the federal government, And if there is no direct conflict, then we go ahead to ask ourselves, under the two laws, under which of the two laws is the consumer better protected? And if you should ask me that question, as long as this law is concerned, on the face of it, a consumer is better protected under the Lagos law than under the federal law. Why I said that was because of the fact that if you remember that a consumer is a citizen, and we are talking about Lagos State as a state. If somebody that resides in a remote part of Lagos State, and just because of the fact that he wanted to be protected under the federal law, but he does not have access to an agency or the officials through which his or her own rights are going to be protected, the right is as good as nothing. But if under the Lagos law, there's an opportunity for the person to go to the local government area and lay his or her own complaint, then the person will readily embrace the law that best protects his or her interest. So it is not really about whether there are two laws. Just like my friend said, they are under the concurrent list. The federal government can legislate on it. The state can also legislate on it. And because of that fact, the only area where we start to fault the law is where there is a direct conflict, if it is in contradiction to any federal existing law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But since there is none, it is a complementary law.
Okay.
The way I look at it, it is complementary. So it is complementing the efforts
of the CPC. But you made a statement that the consumer is better protected under Lagos State law. Yes. I don't know if Tam will agree with that.
No, certainly.
That CPC.
I was itching to speak on that,
okay.
Really. My colleague cannot be correct on that, that the consumer is better protected under the state law. The Consumer Protection Council had existed over the years, and so in terms of knowledge, who do the consumer know as at today? They know the Consumer Protection Council, which had existed. Our office is at Ilupeju, 18 Ilupeju Bypass. We've been on Facebook, we've been on Twitter, we've been on email. And so in terms of who they can approach easily, of course, the Consumer Protection Council is there. We will not be in a position to judge the performance of the authorities that will be set up to execute the Lagos State law, because it has not even started. Before I came, I've sent my staff who were at the Lagos State Ministry of Commerce. We've spoken to them. It has not actually started. Yes, they've not implemented this law.
Okay.
So as we talk today, it is the Consumer Protection Council that is easily accessible and available for the consumer to protect them.
We actually don't have much time, really.
Okay,
I just want to ask one more question, and that is to Chiwike. Are we going to see, is it possible, or is there a likelihood that with this development in Lagos, some state governments will also want to take that same path? Are we going to see that possibility?
Yes, definitely. As long as law is concerned, I think Lagos State is in the forefront of every other state in Nigeria. Their laws are innovative. Even though they are not perfect, like this law is not perfect, because of the fact that there are some few loopholes there, which we will now have time to talk about. But it is still innovative. Okay. I am not faulting the opinion of my friend because they are already on ground. But when this law takes off and whatever is there starts to manifest, I believe that it will be easily accessible. Because the reason why CPC is there and people have not really known much about it was because of the fact that the route of assessing their assistance is really tortious, so to say. It's really difficult. Because they are not everywhere. And when this law starts to work and it's almost everywhere, you easily go to the one that is...
okay, you feel that the Lagos State law will be closer to the people.
Yes, and that is what I will
CPC.
want them to do, because they are talking about the fact that they are making some amendments. If it can be suggested, so that people can have options. It's just for the protection of the consumer. And
I know that Tam will have more comments. I just want to give you 30 seconds to just make a comment.
Okay.
Our time is really up.
The quick comment is the fact that, as it is, we have state committees under our present law. But if the amendment law is going to push it further and further. But having said so, we must emphasize that this is not the first time a state law is being attempted. It has happened in Enugu State, it has happened in Abia State, it has happened in Kano State, even in Lagos. Go and check 2003. There was a Lagos State law on consumer protection. Okay. It's something that it's so difficult for the states to do, but I do not know for what reason or the other they seem to be coming up. They want to put up these laws again and again. I wish them the best, and I believe we will work with them, like I said, wherever it works.
Exactly.
Our interest is that the consumer is protected.
Thank you.
That's my position.
Thank you, and I wish you the best as well as wrap up the program. Thank you so much for coming to talk with us. Our guests have been Tam Nokumbia, Head, Lagos Office of the Consumer Protection Council, and a legal practitioner, Chinwike Ezebube, and they've been talking about the law of the Lagos State Consumer Protection, which is meant to protect the consumer rights and also ensure that we get the best from manufacturers and producers. And that's where we'll wrap up the program. We do appreciate your time with us. And Bolaji Akinwale News Track is up next.